Hello, America. I'm just so excited. Look at this beautiful car. This is a Fiat. Oh, I can't wait until they get their hands on Chrysler. This is so sexy, isn't it? We're doomed. Listen, here's the deal. You know, a lot of people will say, I have to tell you, there's a shadow conspiracy going on. Not really. Not really. But there is the beginnings of a shadow government now, which is giving the Obama administration unprecedented power with virtually no oversight. And I keep turning to television like, is anybody going to talk about this? Is anybody mention this? I'll tell you exactly what I mean in just a second. But first, let me just show you something over here at the chalkboard. Yes, Glenn's got a stupid little chalkboard thing. It's our system of checks and balances. It's how our country was designed. We were designed, the three branches of government. You have the judicial, you have the legislative, and you have the executive branch, right? Then what happens, this was to protect liberty by ensuring that power could never be concentrated. Everybody tries to grow the legislative branch a little bigger. Every executive tries to make it an imperial presidency, and the judicial branch has gotten out of control over the years. But generally speaking, this is the way it's supposed to work. Progressives on both sides of the aisle, remember, we're talking Republicans and Democrats, both sides of the aisle have slowly been chipping away at this. And they've been doing it lately with something called a czar. But czars aren't new. During FDR's administrations, some executive positions were actually called, you ready for this? Dictators. He put them down here. They didn't really answer to anybody. Dictators. Look it up. They had the dictator of steel. They had the dictator of lumber. Yeah, tell me how much all of the Democrats and the progressives just hated Mussolini. Dictators. The idea was for them to control supply within each industry in order to keep the prices up. Richard Nixon did the same thing, but he thought dictators, that Mussolini Hitler thing, that's probably pretty bad now. He called them instead czars, which, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they all shot in the woods at one point for being really bad guys? The first czar was an energy czar. He was charged with overseeing the 1970s energy crisis, which that's worked out so well. That's fixed now. The other presidents also have had czars. No one could hold a candle now to President Obama. He has named 16 czars so far, and he's not even done yet. Well, you might look at this and say, well, what's the problem? I mean, they can cut through all the bureaucracy. They can get stuff done, right? Oh, yeah. Except remember our founding fathers? They were kind of smart. They had this whole idea, let's balance power a little bit. Usually, this is what the system looks like. The czars, they don't answer to anybody. They don't answer to the legislative branch. You know what the czars look like? The czars almost have a little box around them. Just like that. They don't need to be confirmed by the Senate. They rarely go before committees. They can claim executive privilege when they're asked to testify. They are accountable to no one except the president himself. But look at the power that we've handed out to these unelected, unconfirmed people. They don't answer to anyone. On the low end, you've got the Great Lakes czar. I wish I was making up the fact that the guy who has a budget of $475 million for suckerfish was a joke, but it's not. On the high end, you have the economic czar, the regulatory czar, the government performance czar. These guys oversee trillions of dollars each. You also have the drug czar, the terrorism czar, urban affairs czar, technology czar, intelligence czar, the cyber czar, 6 other czars. I think what we need is like one big czar just to oversee all the other czars, because I'm losing track. Could our founders really have been this dumb to write a constitution that would allow this to happen? Of course not. They didn't do it this way. They didn't have any of this in mind. There was no wall here between them. Everything had to start, all the spending, all the revenue bills had to start in the House. And the oversight is one of the most important jobs of the legislative branch. What is Barney Frank always saying? There's got to be some oversight. Why is there no oversight? Why is no one looking? That's their job. These concepts are now being shredded. Our Constitution is on fire. This is not just a power grab. I mean, if it was, you know, oh, this is no big deal, then why do we have a health czar when we have already confirmed a health and human services? We already have that. Why do we need a border czar when we have ICE and a Department of Homeland Security? We already have that. Why do we have these little czars over here that they answer to no one? Why do we need a car czar when we already have Treasury and energy departments? The answer? Because this bureaucracy, they answer to everybody, eventually you. These guys? No, they answer directly to the president. Everybody else has to answer to you. The czars don't. Our own Neil Cavuto, this is what got me so riled up. Friday, I was watching the show when the judge was filling in. And right before the show came on, Neil Cavuto was on, and he was talking about he's trying to get a hold of the car czar just to get some answers. Well, 107 days ago, Steve Ratner was announced as the car czar, and Neil Cavuto can't get him to come on the show. Now, I understand why the car czar doesn't want to come on my show, because I'm a little nuts sometimes. I could ask him anything. But Neil Cavuto? Let's bring in Fox and Friends host Gretchen Carlson, the senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, and CEO of Wall Street Strategies, Charles Payne, is with us from the Fox Business Network. Okay, first of all, got it right?
Yeah,
right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's scary.
Well, you mentioned who's the czar. That's obvious. President Obama. Yeah, that's the czar.
Yeah. Well, you absolutely do have it right. The Congress has written laws that require the secretaries of each of the branches to serve notice as to what they're going to do, to be transparent with the documents, and to answer to Congress. The czars don't have to serve any notice, have no transparency, and answer to no one except the president.
When I heard Neil Cavuto say the other day, I've been trying to get a hold of him, I realized, oh my gosh, nobody is answering any questions. And then this morning, Gretchen, I'd
like to get a hold of the car czar, too.
Oh.
Never did I think personally that I would need to get a hold of him, but now I do. Because my parents have owned a General Motors dealership in Anoka, Minnesota for 90 years, and they were terminated last week, and they would like to know why. They would like to know why from the car czar.
No, but nobody's telling you. Did you get like 13 pages or something of notice? Did it have any answer? It
said that you will no longer be a part of the new General Motors. Apparently there was criteria. But let me tell you this, Glenn. They haven't lost money. They are a profitable operation. Their objective they met at 103%. You can't go higher than that. And yet they are being terminated. There are 80 employees who will not have jobs anymore. My parents lay awake at night worrying about those employees.
Okay. First of all, Judge, how can they get away with this? We're waiting for SCOTUS. We're waiting for the Supreme Court to go in and say, you can't do the other thing with the bond, but that doesn't even address the czar issue.
If the Supreme Court hears the appeal on the Chrysler matter, it will presumably lay down guidelines for all other bankruptcies, including General Motors. And it will have to order that bankruptcy judges follow the Constitution. And people like Gretchen's parents have a right to be heard. If Barney Frank, to whom you made reference earlier, wants to be able to call the car czar and say, tell GM not to close any dealerships in my district, that is blatantly unconstitutional when Gretchen's parents are closed for reasons that they haven't even been told.
Okay. You have talked to another dealership. Your family has talked to another dealership.
Many. They all had a meeting yesterday in the state of Minnesota. But here is the ironic thing. There was a dealership that was closed in the first round in the metro area of Minneapolis. That person was able to get a meeting with GM executives last week for an hour and a half. And lo and behold, Monday night, that dealership is back in business. Now, you tell me that this isn't about who you know and who you can speak to.
Now,
I thought it was about
the government involved or was GM?
Both.
There was government at that meeting?
There was government intervention with a political person who was able to set up that meeting. But I thought this was supposed to be that you were closing dealerships because they weren't performing.
Listen, here's the deal. General Motors, AIG, Citigroup, and maybe Bank of America. These are entities now that are controlled by the government, and they're conduits for different things. One of the things that wouldn't happen last week that wasn't even talked about was General Motors lending a private equity fund in Beverly Hills $2 billion to buy Delphi. You know, this is nuts.
Wait. Say that again. Why
General Motors.
Hear that?
General Motors, $2 billion to a private equity group, $2 billion so that they could buy Delphi out of bankruptcy. That's what they're doing. Just like AIG was a conduit to pay $100 billion to European banks that we didn't have to pay $100 billion to give Goldman Sachs.